I've had a bit of a rabbit problem in my backyard as of late. The little buggers have dug out a nest under my shed, so I decided the best way to approach the situation is to first think like a rabbit. Thankfully, with the release of Overgrowth from Wolfire Games, I now have that opportunity. But what I've learned in my time spent with Overgrowth this past week is that once rabbits evolve and become bipedal, they become the true masters of horror. These terrifying creatures will kill anything in sight, including other bipedal creatures, without compassion. To do this, they'll use crude and basic tools such as knives and swords. They'll jump incredible distances and have the ability to climb almost any structure. From my observations in this game, I've come to the conclusion that we need to deal with the rabbit problem now, before it's too late. As for the game itself, Overgrowth is known by many for its long development history and series of development diary videos. These videos date back years. I still remember watching one occasionally while I was in high school, when they were posted regularly on GameFAQs and other boards. 9 years later, we're now officially witnessing the 1.0 release of the game, and it feels somewhat bittersweet to be talking about it. To get the obvious question of was it worth it out of the way, in short, it depends on your expectations. Chances are, if you're already a fan of the game and pre-ordered it long in advance, as well as played the many alpha and beta builds of the game, then you'll have a solid idea of what you're in for with this release. However, if you're like me and went in with little expectations or knowledge of what the full game contained, you might be underwhelmed of what Overgrowth has to offer, especially at its current price point. The game features 2 single-player campaigns, the Lugaru story, which is an older game recreated within the Overgrowth engine, and the Overgrowth story. Both can be summarized as a series of stages where you fight other bipedal animals or platform to various points. These stages are strung together by story beats in the form of text boxes at the start and end of each stage. Either campaign can be beaten in the span of a couple of hours. The game's story, however, comes off feeling really disjointed due to the style of presentation. It also doesn't help matters that the writing in both campaigns is really cliched and dry, as well as ending rather abruptly, without much spectacle. Instead, where Overgrowth really shines is in its gameplay, but specifically in the mechanics and technology within the gameplay. The controls are extremely tight and responsive, whether in combat, stealth mode, or platforming. I always felt I had perfect control in whatever I was doing. The combat specifically feels really engaging in just how brutal it can be. I spent hours simply playing in the arena mod, generating random fights in which you can simply kit the crap out of AI opponents. There is just something oddly satisfying about landing that perfect hit on an opponent and watching them fly backwards, followed up by a cracking sound from them landing badly on their head, resulting in a broken neck and an end to the fight. The dynamic physics that worked in this game are something to be applauded. Another thing of note would be the adaptive AI. During combat, your opponents will adapt their defense and counter your moves if you've been spamming the same attack. This nifty AI quirk forces you to change up your fighting style and approach in some of the longer, more drawn-out battles and stages in this game. With that said though, I do feel the jump kick is a tad bit overpowered, as there were plenty of moments I cheesed it simply by jump kicking numerous enemies to death. The game does attempt to counter this, however, by making it so you can potentially land badly from jump kicking, and on the harder difficulties, it can even manage to break your own neck at times from this, but I found this to be a pretty rare occurrence. In terms of technical presentation, Overgrowth looks fairly solid despite in no way being a demanding game. Most people with lower-end computers should have no problem running this just fine. But I did have a few moments where I had some hiccups, specifically when first entering a stage, as well as the occasional bug, such as falling through the map for example. Aside from that, the various character models of the different species look impressive. Everything from various clothing and armor, to smaller details such as blood spurting out everywhere after slitting an enemy's throat. It's the little things such as this that went a long way for me. Overgrowth also supports and offers a plethora of modding options, with the developer tools built right in the game itself, all while having an active modding community releasing plenty of content. With that said though, I can't help but feel like it's going to be these modders and the developers themselves that make or break this game. This depends on the content they release in the future, as so far, the 2 campaigns at launch feel lackluster. That said, here's hoping Overgrowth may still yet become something special in the long run. But as of right now, after all these years, the game was only interesting for me for a few hours and felt more like a fun novelty or a tech demo than an actual video game. While the gameplay mechanics here are solid and the physics engine is impressive, the campaigns on the other hand are extremely disjointed, short, and uninteresting in terms of presentation. By the time I had depleted them both twice over, it just left me wishing they made better use of it all. But for more written reviews from our staff, be sure to head on over to Destructoid.com.